Your Honor, we would ask that the court advise how you would like us to make our request for bond. We had discussed at the arraignment with the previous judge that we would do a formal bond hearing. Certainly, we were kind of in limbo until your appointment, Your Honor. So we certainly would ask the court to review it, but we would like the opportunity to address bond, Your Honor, and how, in whatever form the court would like for us to raise that issue.
I'm fine, but in regards to issue that if you want to set a time for a formal motion on your bond, we can do that at any point in time.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. In terms of dates, is there any parameter in which you would like for us to file it?
If you all want, you can confer with the Commonwealth. If you want, just find some agreeable dates to both sides, and then we'll coordinate that with my office, and that'll be a hearing that I will travel and do that in person.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. That's why I want to make sure that it was convenient for all the parties.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll work around that. And when we get a little bit more, we can probably tie it in, and also with the fact that if we need to have any arguments in regards to the evaluation process, we could probably couple that and kill two birds with one stone.
Yes, Your Honor. In the event that the court, there were a bond set that was makeable, then at that point we, may have to revisit whether there's a inpatient versus outpatient. But I understand, Your Honor, we'll file that motion and get with everyone to discuss a convenient hearing date, Your Honor.
Sure. Be glad to address bond at any point in time.
Guys, if you're not familiar with this story, it happened September 19th, 2024 in Letcher County, Kentucky, when Sheriff Mickey Stines walked into Judge Kevin Mullins' chambers and took his life. Now, that is caught on video. You'll see that coming up, so trigger warning about that. Be mindful of your own mental health. It is hard to watch. But there's no question as to who committed the crime. There is a lot of question as to why the crime was committed. So let's get into it.
What we have spoken with Mr. Steele about is that we do believe that there will be an issue as to criminal responsibility. We have consulted with, folks with regards to that issue. I reached out to Mr. Steele and we basically decided that we would raise this as a joint motion. I know that, once we provide that notice, the Commonwealth is entitled to have their expert evaluate Mr. Stines. And out of expediency, I believe that Mr. Steele and I would ask for an order for that evaluation to go ahead and take place.
And in regards to what I generally would do, and I think that's probably the best course of action to go ahead and get that in the pipeline, it is going to require, what I would recommend is that we go ahead and get the order entered in regards to competency and criminal responsibility. I might as well go ahead and that address, since we're going to be doing that, versus we've seen it sometimes be piecemealed, and I don't want to delay the proceedings if we would have to go back and redo that.
And I understand the court's position, and certainly we do not raise the issue as to competency, but I understand the court and the expediency of going ahead and examining that. I understand that, but I did want to make clear that our notice only concerned the criminal responsibility, Your Honor.
Okay.
But the other issue that I wanted to make sure that we discussed was my understanding with the, I believe it's Shawn's law, that made it more clear that our expert should be able to participate in the proceedings at KCPC. And I would ask that I'll go ahead and identify him as Dr. Eric Drogan.
Okay, I'm very familiar with Dr. Drogan.
we would ask that Dr. Drogan be allowed to participate pursuant to the statute. And then the second piece of that is, and generally I believe this is standard procedure, but I believe that normally KCPC gives both parties an opportunity to submit materials that they may want reviewed.
Sure.
We certainly would like to make sure that we have that opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, both sides will have. I know the more information the KCPC's provided, the more effective the evaluation will be.
Yes, Your Honor.
So the judge has agreed to schedule a bond hearing for Sheriff Mickey Stines, and his attorney has now disclosed the expert that will be working with KSP for the evaluations for Mickey Stines. Do you guys think he's going to get bail? I mean, after all, this is a murder case. I don't think he's going to be out in the public anytime soon. I mean, that certainly could be considered a public safety threat. Let me know what you think in the comments. But now just imagine this. Suppose he were to get out on bail. Now, if you're familiar with Letcher County or Eastern Kentucky, it is nothing like public in the big cities. There's very little video surveillance. I mean, you don't have the traffic cameras, the license plate scanners, and every public building that you go into with video surveillance monitoring you. Now, just imagine if all this corruption, this alleged corruption, is actually going on, and Mickey Stines is aware of it, was threatening to disclose information. Maybe his life would be in danger, wouldn't you think? This is just a scenario that I'm playing out in my head because, if you watch the video of his transport to jail, he appeared to be terrified. He went as far as to indicate that he thought these guys were going to take him to the woods and off him, in my opinion. He even accused them of wanting to turn him over to someone to let them hurt him. He demanded that they check the back seat of the automobile before he got in it, stating, make certain there's no guns back here. In other words, if he were shot or hurt en route, they couldn't use that as an excuse. I mean, he did literally seem paranoid. Maybe some of that was an act for the body cam, or maybe it is factually justified due to what he knows. So if I knew these big secrets and I knew how high that corruption ran, I don't think I'd want to be out here walking the streets where things can happen in these communities that are not captured on surveillance like they are in most big cities. Just my 2 cents. Let me know what you think. Again, I don't think it's anything we got to worry about. I don't think he's going to get bail. Okay, let's continue.
Lucky for me, Allison Weiner is here again. She is News Nation's investigative producer and has worked this story in Letcher County from the beginning. Okay, Allison, man, you've been finding out a lot, and I have been sort of going crazy trying to figure out what could a motive possibly be to see an act like that play out so starkly. Have you learned more about the motive?
I have, and I think first of all, we need to say that the daughters are not involved. Sheriff Stein's daughter had nothing to do with Sheriff Mullins. That has been told to me by multiple sources multiple times. But I think what we want to also say is that this is still, the Sheriff Stein did shoot Judge Mullins, and that is, he did kill him. So whatever we say, now let me just talk about why he might have done that. I've talked to multiple sources, and I found out a lot in the last couple of days. I found out that Sheriff Stines was getting a lot of pressure on him prior to the civil deposition that he was involved in. As you said, he was sued for Deputy Fields' behavior, his using, sex trafficking and also engaging in sex by keeping people out of jail who were already convicted. And that is the thing that we know happened criminally. And the only person held responsible was Deputy Fields. What we have found out now from multiple sources is that not only was Sheriff Stines involved in that activity, in the sexual activities that were happening in that courthouse, but also there have been allegations that Judge Mullins was involved. And Judge Mullins also was involved in sex trafficking, according to several sources. So prior to this deposition, was told to me, and certainly by Sheriff Stines' lawyer, but also by two other sources, that Sheriff Stines was under a lot of pressure prior to the deposition. We talked before about how the sheriff couldn't say anything, how quiet he was during the deposition, and he was known for being outspoken, very kind of prickly, had a bad temper, and somehow he made it through that whole deposition without, shouting or losing his temper and being kind of almost zoned out. It was described to me by Ned Pillersdorf, who is representing the plaintiff in that civil rights action. So I think what we've learned now is that this scandal, this sex for favors, sex for keeping women who were drug addicts out of prison, getting them home detention or getting them rehab help, goes higher than Sheriff Stines. And when he sat down for that deposition, there was incredible pressure on him to talk about things that he wasn't supposed to talk about people that he's not supposed to talk about. And that pressure became incredibly intense before he testified, and there was pressure on him after he testified in that deposition under oath. The only person that seemed to be taking any responsibility or being on the hook for this sex scandal, besides Deputy Fields, who already had been sentenced, served his 3 months in jail for one complainant, one woman who said that she was forced into sex in order to be able to stay in her home and not go to jail. We know that there are other victims. I have spoken to other alleged victims, and we will be following up on that with
The former Kentucky sheriff is accused of killing a county judge in his chambers 2 months ago, and there is surveillance video of the shooting that was played during his very first court appearance back in October. There it is. It shows Stines talking with Judge Kevin Mullins in his office, and then the shooting begins.
Yes, incredible.
Can you tell me, true or not true, that the sheriff is claiming that it was the judge who brought him, the sheriff, in on the sex ring, meaning favors to inmates if they come into chambers and perform sex acts, and that something happened at the lunch that they were at the day of the execution? Is there any truth to that?
There is some truth to it. The sheriff isn't claiming it. I have 2 to 3 sources who have told me that Judge Mullins was the architect of this sex for favor scheme and was heavily involved, and that there is another witness who said actually that he was sent women by Judge Mullins for sex. So the sex trafficking, that is what we've heard. In terms of what happened at that lunch, I've heard a lot of different versions from a lot of different people. So I can't say for certain. I do know that the sheriff was anxious to speak to the judge. He had not spent the night in his home. He's had trouble with his wife and their relationship for years, apparently. He had stepped out, so forth and so on. But that night, he had been kicked out, and he came to that lunch in his civilian clothes. And then later, I also have learned that when he went to call his daughter, the sources claimed that he was calling his daughter to say goodbye because he knew what he was going to do.
Wow.
And
that's unreal.
He couldn't reach
Calling
her on
his daughter and using both phones. Yeah, using his phone and couldn't reach her, and then use the judge's phone to tell her that that's what he's about to do. Okay, quickly.
I'm sorry, we just want to tell our viewers that this goes higher. There wasn't just one Deputy Fields, who was involved in this scheme. He wasn't the only one abusing women who were drug addicted and helpless and unable to tell anyone about what was happening to them.
So guys, do you think that the sheriff will get bailed out of the pokey? Let me know in the comments below. Also, this is something that's just circling in my mind. Let me know your thoughts on it. The sheriff did surrender immediately after he did the deed. So, wouldn't his surrender indicate that he knew, hey, what I did was wrong? So, if there was an attempt to plead insanity, that doesn't make sense. Um, if in fact this, I consider it to be gossip and speculation, if in fact the sheriff did call the daughter to say goodbye prior to pow pow, wouldn't that indicate premeditation? And would that not mean that he is not insane? Once again, making an insanity plea not a good choice? That's just how my mind works. Let me know what you think. Also, do you think the sheriff could ever disclose the real reason behind whacking the judge? And I'm trying to be colorful with my words because YouTube will flag the video. Do you think he can ever disclose that if, in fact, he is involved in this corrupt ring of sextortion and who knows what else without putting his family in danger? Um, I don't know. That's just sticking in my head. So let me know what you think. And again, thank you so much for watching the video. Give me a like, give me a share. And when we get an update, I'll make a new video. If there is a case in Kentucky that you'd like me to dig into, please put that in the comments below as well. Thanks.